have the list, so sit here.
Liz has a lot to say. She's very passionate. So let's get started. The last time I did a presentation like this, I tried to focus on I think narrowing it down to education, health, small businesses, housing, and the environment would help illustrate the reasons why I'm running for city council. But I decided just to target it to one issue each time. And so the subject for today was the stock of permanent affordable housing that we already have, how to protect it, and how to grow it for the next generation of young folks. Because there's free money out there, right? This is an HDFC co-op. And I am so grateful we were able to buy into this co-op a year and a half ago, and it was thanks to a program that I'm going to talk about. Unfortunately, most people don't know this program exists, and this is really a dereliction of the duties of our elected officials who don't talk about it. So, and Nicole, by the way, is the world's best broker, currently working right now. She's the lady who helped us get this apartment, and that's another story for another time. But let's get straight to it. So it's called the HPD Home First Down Payment Assistance Program. The funds originally come from HUD, that's the Housing Urban Development federal government agency program, but it is disseminated to different municipalities across the country. You have to meet certain income guidelines, et cetera, which aren't accurate for New York City because we obviously have much higher costs of living. Doesn't matter. My frustration with this program is that, first of all, it took 7 months to process our application. That's not the federal government, that's the city government, right? It's HPD, that's the Housing Preservation Department, that administers this program.
That the processing of applications was handed out to Abyssinian Baptist Church. They hired 2 people to handle the whole thing for the whole city. It was not the city, it was the person that they contracted with to do the work, and that's Abyssinian, and they only hired 2 people.
She's calling them by name. So Abyssinian Baptist Church, okay, so the way it works is you have to go through, let's call it a training program. It's a series of different workshops over a period of time. It could be a month or what have you, where you learn everything from financing, property maintenance, management, etc. And it's often nonprofit. It's not often. It is solely a nonprofit that is given this workshop, the ability to give this workshop. And it was Abyssinian Baptist Church, but at the time when we applied, it was NHS. That's Neighborhood Housing Services. There's a whole, we can get into the weeds of that. I was trying to keep this down to 10 minutes. But yes, there are problems. And you also have problems with, there's not a lot of data out there. If you want data, you have to put in a FOIL, F-O-I-L, that's a Freedom of Information Law request. Those FOIL requests can take months. I've been trying to figure out things like how many of those applications are processed by all of the designated nonprofits. There are about a dozen of them that HPD has authorized to give these workshops. How many of that dozen or so are, what are the numbers? How many people are applying? Of that pool of applicants, how many people are actually getting the grant? The turnaround time to process that application. How many are coming from Abyssinian or whoever the designated nonprofit is? Because that allows for a degree of corruption, right? Why would I allow this other person who did the workshop through another nonprofit when I have my people here who did the workshop through us, who paid us to do it? Wouldn't it make more sense for them to process? I'm not saying this is happening, but these are questions we need to ask. Yep. Because as I've pointed out during community board meetings, Martin Luther King said, justice delayed is justice denied. Well, an application delayed is an application denied because a lot of people walk away. We almost walked away. Nicole can tell you, the hair-pulling moments. 7 months, 6 months, 7, it shouldn't, everything else, the mortgage went through, the seller accepted our offer, the seller was more than accommodating. All of that took about, what would you say, 8 weeks at most, six weeks? But then here comes another 6 to 7 months for the application to go through. This is a problem that our city government officials can easily solve. There's no excuse. You have one person working at HPD that's administering this program. One person. So it's not surprising when you read, I didn't take a screenshot of it, but it's not surprising when you read that, for example, black home ownership has declined significantly. But yet the number of us who are graduating with degrees
Has increased.
has gone up so much higher. So, yeah. These are some more like criteria based on household size, income. So this is a resolution that I wrote actually 2 years ago now, in April of 2023. I'm sorry it's hard to read it, but this is just a chart you can find online. It's just talking about home ownership for different groups. It's on the Community Board 9 website. When I presented, first of all, that resolution passed unanimously. But what then happens? It goes into a void, into a vacuum. The other thing I forgot to mention is anyone want to take a guess what the application fee is? How much do you think HPD, that's the Housing Preservation Department, how much do you think they charge someone who's supposed to be low to moderate income to process their application for this grant? Any guess? Just make
$500.
You said $500?
I know it's more.
$850. When I applied to Columbia, granted that was a couple years ago, it was a $120 application. Why is HPD charging $850 for something, a program that's supposed to be for low to moderate income? There are so many, listen, I could spend just one workshop alone, 1 hour, talking about all the problems with this grant, but I decided I'm not gonna give them a laundry list of how to improve it. I'm just gonna make 2 asks. Number 1, lower the application fee to something reasonable, $50, $100 even. And number 2, expedite the processing time. It should never take 6 months, 7 months to process these. Just bring it down to 1 month. It's literally a small dossier of paperwork that they're asking for. So there's really no excuse. And the city did nothing. That's the full resolution that I wrote, very short, only a page long. And the city, from what I've heard, and the person who told me this is Reverend Charles Butler from HCCI, that's the Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement. HCCI is one of the nonprofits that's designated to do these workshops. And when I saw him a few months ago, he told me it's now a $1,500 application fee. I haven't corroborated that, so don't quote me on it. And I tried to find on HPD's website where it says that, but even if it's still $850, it's unacceptable. Yeah.
So we are actually encouraged to tell our clients not to go for this program because of the timeline that it would take. It would actually delay them getting a house using this program.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you telling me to do instead?
We don't even tell them about the program because why would we tell them about something that's going to
That's
delay
going to
them?
take them 8 months to a year.
And then the seller, you have to find somebody that's willing to agree to go with your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is not willing to go with you, you could,
Yeah.
even if they accept they accept this, right? First of all, the inspection is very difficult to pass if you don't know someone. And then if the seller agrees and you say this process takes about 3 months and they say, okay, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna come back with some type of paperwork issue and reject it.
Oh yeah.
And then that's the end. And that has to happen to her.
Okay, so
If she wasn't who she was and fought for herself, she would have never got this.
Yeah. I will spare you the details of the phone calls I was making, the pulling from behind the sidelines, but no one should have to do that. People are working full time, some of us have kids and other responsibilities, and this becomes another full-time job. It's not right. Anyway, so why am I highlighting this? Seems like a nightmare. The process feels like that, but it's absolutely worth it. And I want to see more people, especially younger people, becoming homeowners. Not only homeowners, when you own your space, you take care of your community in ways that no one ever will. You know, we can talk about the NYPD, we can talk about X, Y, and Z, but community policing, when you have that grandma up the street or who, you all know what especially the older generation, you all know what I'm talking about. Where I grew up in Brooklyn, I never saw police, ever. But it was a very family-oriented neighborhood where sometimes you're more afraid of,
Grandma off the street.
yeah, especially in Barbados, which is where my family is from. Yeah, you fear those people much more than any so-called authority. I don't mean that to sound in a terrifying way, but it's really the fabric of this neighborhood and preserving that I want to see more of. And there's no better way to do that than through homeownership. Okay. And speaking of which, so